We would like to invite our first and business class customers. Thank you.
Tony Fernandes, welcome to In Conversation.
Thanks for having me.
99 cents for a flight. Are we ever going back to that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think, I've been through 20 years of this. We've had many kind of ups and downs. Obviously, this is the largest down, but we've been through SARS, bird flu, high oil, low oil. This is another phase, but the trend is always the same. There's a huge demand for travel. And while one-off costs will be there, they will eventually eradicate, and we're at that process. I'm here. That's a big step. I was in Bangkok yesterday. I'm going to Manila. I wasn't traveling for 2 years. Yes, there are lots of extra protocols, the extra tests, and part of my kind of roadshow is to convince governments that we need to kind of get on with life and go back to the way we were. So yeah, I'm very confident that the common man, which is what we're all about, 20 years ago when I started this dream that now everyone can fly, and it really did happen. We're very determined that it will go back to that, and I'm very convinced it will.
If you say that 99 cents may come back, we could get these really cheap tickets again. But if I'm going to have to pay $300, $500, for all the various tests.
Yeah, I mean, it's irrelevant, right? I completely agree. And now you begin to understand what I've been fighting for 20 years. The airfare ticket is just one piece of your cost. That's why I fight with airports all the time to say, there are two types of travelers. There are two types of hotels. There is a Rolls Royce and a Mini. And so the travel ecosystem should be catered towards a traveler who wants to save money. So I believe that these tests will start to reduce, and you see Thailand. And today in Singapore, and I have to applaud the Singapore government, really, I came in, I was out at the airport in 15 minutes, arrived in my hotel, went across the road and did my PCR antigen at a substantially reduced cost, got negative, and I'm a free man. So we are heading that way. Singapore is leading the way. I hope it continues to lead the way for ASEAN with no quarantine, with no more. I mean, the airport's back to the way it used to look, right? There's still people wandering around with complete kind of blue outfits, etc. But we don't have any more extra tests. It's immigration, and you're out.
Are the governments listening to you, though?
Well, yeah. Yesterday I spent the last 2 days in Thailand. I was very warmly welcomed. I was thrilled to be there, and I met the Minister of Health, who's Deputy Prime Minister, twice, and the Minister of Transport. And yesterday, Thailand removed the third test, reduced insurance, and I've been reliably informed that's step one of opening up. So we presented a layman's view. Obviously, there's been incessant lots of doctors, and their aim is reduce deaths, reduce hospitals. But I think we've gone to a place where people are educated, people are boosted and vaccinated, and people have to decide their own level of risk. We do it every day. Crossing the road is, going on a plane, getting dengue, etc. We're now reaching that stage where we have to take your own life into your own hands, so to speak, and make your own assessment of what your risks are. There are 3 friction points in really resuming travel. The paperwork is one. The level of tests and the cost of tests. And if you just allow me to digress for 1 second, I feel very strongly that lab companies have profit gorged. If you look at home testing kits, they have come down in price. PCR tests are ridiculously expensive, and most of that equipment has been depreciated. I feel that they're morally, and it's a very strong word, I think they're morally wrong to profit. You all have to make profit, nothing wrong with that, but they're morally wrong to be charging what they're charging. And clinics and hospitals and labs have to relook at that. So we had the paperwork, we had the tests, the cost and the volume of the tests, and then you have insurance costs. Those have snuck in there, which we are, Thailand just recently reduced, and we hope it will be taken out completely. So those are the three kind of obstacles. And then obviously going back home, you have a different set of conditions as well. So I think Singapore has led the way, and I think that's the way going forward. And the reality is Omicron is here. It's everywhere. And how can a few tourists make a difference to that? When you have in Korea, I still don't understand, 170,000 cases yesterday, yet I have to quarantine, and I have to do a pre-departure test. Even if I had COVID, what difference will that make to the community? So the West have taken a much more pragmatic approach. And sometimes I fear politicians feel they have to do something, and hence borders become the victims. And it's very easy to lock down. It's very easy. It's harder to return your life to normalcy. And I think that's where the real leadership is going to now take place. Countries that begin to get their people back to their normal lives. As I said in the beginning, there's a risk on everything, right? And but now there's an economic risk to people's lives. Tourism is a very, very large part of ASEAN GDP.
What about the mental hurdle? You've mentioned that. It's been 2 years of staying at home. Some of these people are not going back to travel the way they used to.
I disagree with you completely. I think, I turned up in Bangkok the other day and posted on my social media, and I had like 11,000 comments on various forms that people want to travel. I mean, and of course, I am someone they relate to travel, so I'm walking the streets of Singapore, and they're asking, when are you starting this flight? When are you starting this flight? Everyone is asking me, please fight to reduce PCR costs. I think governments have underestimated the level of anger that people feel they've been restricted.
Well, they could argue, obviously, you're a man in charge of an airline. You're not in charge of the hospitals. You don't have to see the deaths.
No, I'm not. And and I'm not saying I have any right to say it, but I'm balancing. I'm only reading what has been written. Many countries have said COVID is over. Is it? No. So there's a balancing act. There's a level of disease everywhere, and there's a level of acceptable deaths. And the learned advice from everyone, from Asian governments who are more conservative, is that there is a decoupling of hospitalizations and death with the Omicron virus. So I'm just saying we need to move. Of course, I'm a vested interest, but I'm also someone who's very close to the ground. Of course, I'd like it quicker, but I want to strongly say opening the border doesn't mean you can come in. That's not opening the border. Opening the border with 3 tests, huge amount of paperwork, insurance costs is not opening. That's an invisible barrier that you're putting up.
But is mass tourism gone forever in a post-pandemic world? Some countries are saying they'd prefer to have high-spending green tourists and fewer backpackers.
No, I don't think that's the case at all. I think you may have situations like Bhutan, or Minister Sandi may be referring to certain areas in Indonesia where they don't want a mass tourism. But there is no country that have said no, we don't want to grow our tourism base. Sustainable tourism, I completely agree, and AirAsia obviously is a contributor to mass tourism. And prior to COVID, we were going into towns and saying, you know, what do you need? You know, are you ready for this? Which areas don't you want us to touch? How do we educate tourists on, you know, treating your environment properly? I think that's important, whether we have COVID or not. Respect of your guests.
So you don't think there's a contradiction between sustainable tourism and tourists who are coming in for just cheap liquor, cheap hotels, for a quick good time and really don't care about the environment?
It's education. I think all of it is education. Yeah, there's nothing wrong in people coming in for what you've just mentioned. Sounds fun, by the way. But there's nothing, they will still respect the environment and the people and the culture. I don't think that's just education. And I think COVID has shown that we can, it was a global problem. It wasn't for the rich, for the poor, for Indonesians, for Americans, it was everybody. And I think sustainable tourism is for everyone. And it's not just tourism, there's a whole lot of other sustainable things that the world has highlighted to us, and we've all got to take a responsibility. So I don't think that will happen.
So you don't think we're going to regress or progress to a Greta Thunberg-like world where we're no longer flying, but we're basically canoeing ourselves to our destinations?
Well, we might, and we might in some areas, but you know, that's like telling me when I came from the music business and I used to argue, I was a big fan of Napster and Spotify, and my bosses were like, no, we want to continue selling CDs. You can't hold technology back. You can't hold globalization back. And I mean, tourism is not going to be the biggest emitter of carbon. It's cars, it's electricity. You know, there's much greater things than airlines contribute 2% of carbon emissions. So we all have to play a part. Airlines have to play a part. And airlines can't do much. Manufacturers have to play a part in reducing that carbon footprint with electric planes or hydrogen, etc.
So you think that we will see getting on a flight just for the weekend will come back?
100%. I mean, I saw it on my flight to Singapore. So traveling has become part of one's life. If you were to ask the youth, what would they give up their spending on? Clothes would be ahead of travel. Travel's up there. And I think it's good for the world. The more we connect, you know, I don't want to sound like Miss Universe, but the more we connect, the more we understand each other, and the world is a better place for that. We need diversity. We've just launched a diversity campaign in AirAsia because we think one of the negatives of COVID has been we've become less tolerant of each other, and so we need to get that opened up again.
You're now reincarnating into capital A.
Yeah.
What is capital A? I mean, an airline we can understand.
Yeah.
But this?
Okay, so when I started AirAsia along with my partners, I always had this vision of a lifestyle. And of course, I worked with Richard Branson and Virgin, and that's where the ethos of a company could create a lifestyle. So what does that mean? You know, travel is a big part of one's lifestyle. Food is a big part of one's lifestyle. Financial services is a big part of one's lifestyle. And in this new world, logistics is part of this lifestyle. So what airlines haven't realized, and obviously some are trying to emulate us now, is that their biggest asset is data. In AirAsia's case, our biggest asset is data plus our brand. I mean, you know, everyone knows AirAsia. It is quite remarkable how a little company in Malaysia has created this kind of phenomena. And what I saw was, you know, we can't stand still. Then it wasn't COVID, but it started before COVID. I said, well, we should give our customers more than just a flight ticket, and we can, because we know them well. And so we started developing these digital concepts, and then COVID hit. And if there was one blessing in disguise for COVID, when you're stuck at home for 3 months, you're really pretty focused, as opposed to running around flying 90 million people a year. We moved people in the sky, so why couldn't we move people in the ground? And we created ride hailing and food delivery. We moved packages in the air, so we can do both. And we created AirAsia Express, where we'll compete with the DHLs of the world and the FedEx of the world. And then payment has been, I've been all about inclusivity, value, and accessibility, and financial services are beyond many of the people that fly with us. Why shouldn't they be able to buy shares? Why shouldn't they be able to have cheaper remittance and services, etc.? So payment was a very big part of AirAsia when we started. And if you think about it, while many of these decacorns were in their prams, we were selling tickets on the internet 20 years ago. We were creating payment systems. So we've taken all that knowledge and high efficiency and created 3 new digital businesses: our super app, our logistics company called Teleport, and Big Pay, which is our fintech. And then we have an incubator trying out new things, which is Red Bead Capital. And I had to change the name because while it was called AirAsia Group, we couldn't move people away from just talking about the airline.
What about people who say that you're now really just a wannabe Grab or a wannabe
Yeah,
Gojek?
I'm quite happy to say that. I have no problem saying that. I was a wannabe Southwest Airlines. I was a wannabe Ryanair. I mean, there's nothing wrong in that. Imitation is flattery. But we're a bit more than that. Okay, so you can't imitate without innovating and be relevant. So while Grab would be more focused on food and ride hailing, we're very focused on travel. But we will also be focused on ride hailing because we think we can provide a different form of service. I can't announce it yet, but you'll see our new app and a new UX and a new way of communicating with that app.
When do you think we're going to be back to flying the way we used to?
Oh, I think within this year, for sure. Going into immigration, giving my passport, a couple of extra pieces of paper, and I was out in 15 minutes. Going across the road and getting a PCR antigen test, that's a big step forward. Big step forward. So recovery, when I say recovery, I mean going back to the way it was, is going to be a bell-shaped curve, for sure. And countries that are more negative will be pressurized by those that are more positive, right? I think you will see a very different world at the end of May. And I think towards the end of the year, you'll be coming to KL every day for Kway Teow.
We hope so. But if we look at how things are developing now, would we say that tourism, the way that we used to know it, can really come back to what it was previously?
I'm very confident. I've had 20 years of this. People want to travel. I think we will travel smarter. Do I think business travel will resume the way it was? No. I think it will take a little bit longer, but it will. I think short-haul travel definitely will rebound very strongly. I see it in domestic, right? I see it in Malaysia. We've got 20 flights a day to Langkawi. That's more than we had pre-COVID. So I do believe it will return. I do believe at the right cost. I do believe there will be more sustainability in what we do, but I think by and by it's going to be the way it was.
Prior to COVID, Southeast Asians were in fact one of the most eager travelers in the world. Are we lagging though now behind America and Europe?
100%. I mean, we're definitely lagging behind. That's because you can go around Europe without tests and vaccines and all these other things, right? So we've been a bit more cautious, but we were hit more heavily by the Delta variant. We also, the world did discriminate vaccine distribution. And so, we were less vaccinated in Southeast Asia, maybe not Singapore, but in Southeast Asia. We had to compromise on certain types of vaccines, etc., just to get something into someone's arm. And so you can understand the trepidation of governments because they had it tough and they had a more demanding audience than maybe in the West. But, I think we have enough now to as I said, the great leaders are the ones who will bring us back to the way we were. Okay, you stopped it, you protected us, but protection also means going back to the way we were. And that is, as I said, it's easy to lock down. It's much harder to come out of that. And that's where we're going to see great leadership.
So, last thing, what do you say to my 87-year-old mother who says, I'd like to go and travel again, but I don't want to get sick? Can I take a plane?
Fly with me, and I guarantee you she won't be sick. No, I mean, I'm not exactly a spring chicken, but I'm not afraid. I've been vaccinated, I've been boosted. I know where to wear masks, I know how to be sensible. But we all slip because we're humans, we like social contact. But I'm also, I feel confident that the people I mix with are being responsible as well. So I don't think there's any fear.
But what are we going to do about social distancing? It's not exactly social distancing on a budget airline.
But in the airline, one, we know you are vaccinated and boosted. Two, we recirculate the air every 20 seconds, something called HEPA filters. And obviously, you're wearing masks, and there are various other cleansing procedures that are going on. I actually feel probably the safest on a plane because I know everyone's been vaccinated and boosted, and at the moment everyone's PCR tested anyway. Plus we have our own filters to take out viruses. So at AirAsia, we've had people with COVID on the plane, but the transmission has been outside of the aircraft, not in the aircraft. If I can end by saying the Queen of England, who is older than your mother, is working. She has COVID. She is still performing light duties. I mean, if that isn't a mark of where COVID is right now, a 90-year-old, over 90, got COVID, but she's carrying on with her life as normal. Full respect to the Queen, and we should take an abject lesson out of the Queen of England.
Tony Fernandes, thank you for being on In Conversation.
Pleasure, thanks for having me.